is tea time. Yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, welcome to Tea Time, everyone. Miss Liz here. We do have a little bit of technical difficulty, so we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to twitch. You know how Miss Liz does. Miss Liz does twisted tea sometimes. John is in the house, and as you can see, his poster is there. We're going to just get Miss Liz up here for a second. There we go. And we're going to get you guys over to Miss Liz's YouTube channel. We're going to get you to ring that little doorbell. And we're going to get you to enjoy over 400 different types of teas, storytelling and words. That's what Miss Liz does. We don't serve a beverage in this house. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Today we have the incredible John Kennedy Howard in the house. So before we get started, we'll get the disclaimer going. We're going to get some bio going. And then we're going to share his tea. And his tea is tenacious, engaging, and ageless. So that is the tea that we will be serving today in the house. So let's get started and let's enjoy the afternoon with tea with Miss Liz. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz, myself, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forth dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment and taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It's significant to know that the show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect those wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. Again, all Tea Time shows are done on Thursday at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you see a Tea Time on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, they are special, rescheduled, and surprise tea times. And today we have a special tea time in the house. So today we have John Kennedy Howard in the house. So who is John? Well, John Howard is a legendary competitive cyclist holding world records for speed of 152 miles per hour and endurance of 539 miles in 24 hours. As a founder of the Race Across America, he finished second in its inaugural race, a member of 3 U.S. Olympic teams from 1968 to 1976. He won a Pan American Game gold medal and an Ironman triathlon world championship, boasting 19 national titles in various cycling disciplines. Inducted into the U.S. Cycling Hall of Fame, Howard has also been honored in the Ultra Cycling and Triathlon Hall of Fame. He has authored 6 books, including The Black Cyclone, chronicling the life of pioneering cyclist Major Taylor, who we'll be speaking about today, and has written extensively as a cycling journalist. His coaching legacy includes guiding over 160 national champions, 12 world champions, and 3 Olympics and Paralympic champions. Even in his mid-70s, Howard continues to race and inspire the cycling community. So let me get Howard in here. You'll see Howard in a different way today. And then we're going to have some tea together. So I'm going to get this in here. We have Howard audio, and then we're going to add his image in here. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Liz. I'm sipping my tea as we speak.
It's a real honor to have you here, John, and working together. You know, we have different things that we're doing.
Well, diverse though they are, yes, I agree with that. My focus now is more recreational cycling, which uh, brings in an awful lot of people who ride their bikes recreationally and even in the gym. But it's arguably the number one participation sport worldwide. So cycling is what I'm all about.
So, John, let's take you back to the little boy. Who was John as a little guy, and who is John now?
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, that leads me to a story, a brief story. I was walking through a bike shop, an old school bike shop. There's a lot of history in these stores, these ancient bike stores with hardwood floors and high ceilings. And I came across a comic book featuring Alf Latournier, who was one of the most famous 6-day bicycle racers on planet Earth, who had actually done battle with Major Taylor on the Parc du Prince Velodrome in Paris. And as a very young rider, he's much younger than Major Taylor. But at any rate, he was an expatriate, brought over to the U.S. or came over to the U.S. and migrated to Los Angeles, where he acquired some sponsorship with the Schwinn Bicycle Company and proceeded to set a world record of 108 miles an hour on a Schwinn Paramount bicycle that was custom built for him. And it was done on an unopened section, illegally, I'm sure, on a Bakersfield freeway. I think it was Highway 101. I think it was Highway 101, but I'm not certain of that. At any rate, he broke the world speed record and did it behind a race car, quarter midget race car, and that was really set the tone for me. I saw that and I thought, I want to do that at some point. I want to break the. He was called the Red Devil. I guess that has something to do with his style of cycling. But after I saw that comic book, I was about 8 or 10 years old at the time, and I thought, this is my goal, and it prompted me to become a bicycle racer. And I bought my first semi-race bike there in that store, A&B Cycle in Springfield, Missouri, and the rest, as they say, is history. But my focus at the time was to, I didn't even know who Major Taylor was until much later. But that'll give you a little bit of a glimpse as to how my career started.
So, John, how old were you when you got your first bike?
As I said, 8 to 10 would have been the cruiser period when kids didn't have racing bikes. The sport sort of vanished. It was at one point the most popular sport in America for all the wrong reasons, but nevertheless, it was immensely popular. It was the NASCAR of the day, and I look back at those days, and it was sort of a forgotten period from about 1908 until the 1960s, really. And that was the era that I joined the sport, and picked up my first race bike about 6 or 7 years later. And that was really the start of it. I was about 15 or 16 at the time.
So, John, what got you into the Olympics?
Well, the inspiration from the Red Devil, Alf Latournier, and then eventually I had read. I was an avid reader, and I read portions of Major Taylor's autobiography. One of the very first athletes and to have written an autobiography. And I read portions of it thinking this may well be my boyhood hero. And it was. He was a black athlete who at the time was not well accepted at all. Blacks were not allowed to play. Let me repeat that. They were not allowed to play in any sport practically. Horse racing may have been an example of some of the earliest athletes who were jockeys who happened to be African American. But for the most part, boxing, cycling, two popular sports of the day, both banned black athletes from competing. It was just a universal ban. But because cycling was a tenuous sport, they were competing with baseball for crowds. And so early on, Major Taylor won a very early race at age 14. He was an absolute prodigy. And after he did that, he grew up in Indianapolis, and at the time he threw papers. That was what he did to earn a living. A very poor family, brought up, but fortunately, he was adopted in a sense. He and his father both were adopted by a wealthy railroad family in Indianapolis, and it so happened that the Southard family that adopted Taylor also had a young son about exactly Major Taylor's age. They were both age 10 at the time, and as that relationship developed, they decided to, and things were very different in the day. They wanted to have the Taylors actually live there on the property. And so Gilbert Taylor, Major's father, became the coachman for this family. And Dan, who was the young son, became Major Taylor's best friend, and they were educated by tutors. So they had the benefits of that ongoing tutelage. And so they learned things that they were interested in. In the case of Major Taylor, it was engineering. He was hugely interested in the development of the internal combustion engine, which was incidentally about to replace the bicycle. But nevertheless, he wanted in on it, and he wanted to be a part of all of those inventions, post-industrial revolution inventions like the pneumatic tire, which was developed by John Lloyd Dunlop for his son's bicycle, and the spiral bevel gear, which eventually became the differential on the Model A Ford, and Henry Ford scaled it up. And that was a huge, important piece of equipment on the early automobiles. A number of those inventions brought about the motorcycle and eventually the automobile. So all of this was happening simultaneously. And it brought Major Taylor into this realm of bicycle racing because that was, at the time, the sport of champions. And those who participated in it were considered to be real, how do I say this, edge players, I guess. They were the future race car drivers and pilots of bicycle pilots on the back of tandems, and one of the early inventions was the, of course, internal combustion engine, and they were typically brought over in crates by cyclists like Albert Champion, who was foremost helped the motor age with spark plugs, the Champion spark plug. So all of this evolution was taking place. And back to my story about Taylor's one of his first event. What was his first event? And his employer told him in no uncertain terms, it surprised him actually, said, "I want you in this race." So it was almost an accident that Taylor joined the peloton and did so at the start. In the day, races were handicapped. So you had the beginners starting first, the middle of the packers, and then finally the experts at the end, who had a sizable handicap to make up in order to win the race. Well, it turned out it was a 10-mile race, dashed through the streets of Indianapolis, and Major Taylor got there first. Well, the League of American Wheelmen really didn't want to give him the first place gold medal because he was black, for no better reason than that. And the second place finisher, who happened to be, let me think about this for a second. The second place finisher was a gentleman named Marmon, and I think I remember Marmon. I'm sorry, I don't recall every detail, but Marmon was the champion of Indiana. He was a stellar road cyclist, and when he was asked, "What do you think?" he said, "The kid beat me fair and square. Give him the gold medal. He deserves it." So it went on like that for some time, where Major Taylor had people who promoted him, who really, really believed in him. It was Walter Marmon. Walter Marmon went on to start he and his family started the Marmon Automobile Company in Indianapolis. And the winner of the first Indianapolis 500 was the Marmon Wasp, 1911. So I think it's important to point out that during that period of time, some of the racetracks, which were popular, bicycle racing tracks, actually gave way to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Newbie Loop, which was a place where Major Taylor raced and distinguished himself as a champion there. Eventually, they plowed that track under and built the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is today Speedway, Indiana, which is near Indianapolis. But when you look at the people who promoted Taylor's career, like the early Walter Marmon and his beloved coach Bertie Munger, who was about 10 years older than Major and had been a high wheel bicycle champion in the day. And high wheelers, some of you I'm sure know what a high wheel bicycle is, also known as a penny farthing in the UK. But this was his coach's first attempt at bicycle racing, and he became a champion and eventually started coaching Major Taylor and had his own factory in Indianapolis and began with a sizable chunk of investment money, began building the Bertie Special, of which Major Taylor competed on in the early days. So I know I'm running on and on and on, but maybe this is a good time to stop and ask me some more questions.
Well, let me just make you stop for a little bit. We're into the racing, right? We're into the speed and that. And John, we have a couple questions that are coming in for you that I would like to get out there. So
And
we have the question: have you ever met Major Taylor, and have you ridden with Major Taylor?
oh, wonderful question. The answer in both cases is no. Major Taylor, um, if you read my book, The Black Cyclone, I'm holding it up right now. Um, you will find that Major Taylor, his era was the 1890s. He was born in 1878, same year as my grandfather, by the way. And as such, he lived to be 54 years old and died in 1932. So, way before I was born in 1947, Major Taylor unfortunately left us. So, I have not had that opportunity. But in having researched his life and actually visited many of the venues where he competed, those that are still around, and having spent a great deal of time with his daughter, Sydney, who also left us at age 102, I feel like after interviewing many, Sydney Taylor Brown among them, and several of his contemporaries who were actually in the closing months of their lives, I feel genuinely blessed to have had those opportunities. And I feel like I can give Major Taylor a voice because of that, because I have been there and have followed along in his footsteps.
So, John, I want to get into the title of the book. Can you tell us a little bit about the Black Cyclone? Why you gave it that title?
The title, The Black Cyclone, the hero the world forgot, which they indeed did forget, that was his nickname. His most popular nickname was the Black Cyclone. And in the day, almost all the riders had nicknames like the Red Devil, and uh, uh, they all had some nickname that they followed. Uh, One of the most important events of my life, and I go back to these champions of the day, and each one of them had a nickname. Now that I think about it, um, I was inducted into the U.S. Cycling Hall of Fame in 1989. That was only the second year of its existence, with my boyhood hero, Major Taylor. So you see why I say I feel qualified to give him a voice. I'm certainly I believe maybe the only well, I won't say that. There are several people that interviewed Sydney. I don't think any with that actually took the time to fly back to Pittsburgh and spend more than a week and a half, 2 weeks interviewing her. So I feel like I've got that creative license to do that. And the book is a biographical novel. It is not a pure biography. So what we've done is we've given Major Taylor and his contemporaries a voice. And I think the power of the book, and hopefully, I'm thinking we are going to do a feature film on Major Taylor, and I don't know how long it will take, but we have to do this. We have to bring him to the screen because that's the way we will get the word out. And I want to say this before I forget to say it. If we could attract a fifth of the attention of the African American athletes who are right now being drawn into the ball sports because of the money, certainly, we would change the complexion of cycling worldwide, because I believe the American athlete, especially the African American athletes, are the best at what they do, and they can do virtually anything athletically. So, yeah, thank you, Liz, for showing that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to bring some screens to the table because we have some technical difficulties with John's camera. So I'm just trying to bring up the book so that my viewers and listeners that are watching the video can see what we're talking about. And you can also get the book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all that. Correct, John?
That is correct. It is an Amazon bestseller. I'm proud of that fact. Um, has yet to become a New York Times bestseller, but we're working on that. And yes, it is available either online or in the Barnes and Noble stores. So it's available in hardcover, soft cover, ebook, and finally, we have an Audible version of it.
Oh, well,
So
look at
all
that.
those formats, yes, we have. And if you go to, I of course got this printed all over my business card, but if you go to Major Taylor Story, I think it may be the Major Taylor. It's either the Major Taylor or MajorTaylorStory.com. You will see our website, some great period photographs included on the website. And that's one way you can purchase the audio version of the book. And you can also pick it up on ACX or any of the Audible platforms, I'm sure. So please look up our website and have a look at some of those great period photographs of Major Taylor doing battle with the world's best racers.
So, John, because we have no camera with you, I'm going to just keep putting on some sharing some screens and all of that, so you guys can see a little bit of who John Kennedy Howard is. And there's always a different twist on Tea Time, and Miss Liz finds a different way to get the view in the guest scene. So, John, before we get the next screen up, because I have your Facebook page that we're going to go to, and we're going to talk about the Howard sports. John Howard Performance Sports we'll talk about next. But before we get started with that, John, we're going to get into your tea. The tea that you gave me today was tenacious, engaging, and ageless. Tell me why you gave me those three words.
Let me get you to repeat that because my hearing is less than stellar.
So the three words that you gave me for your tea is tenacious, engaging, and ageless. Tell me why you gave me those three words.
Well, let's start with ageless. I'm still competing and racing at age 77. Still not certainly with the same power load that I used to have 30 years ago. But there's a point where I have to say, a really powerful girlfriend who is also my fiance now, I will add, who rides the back of my tandem. And the two of us actually are course record holders on the tandem. So she adds an element of power to the bike. And, the only word that comes to mind is ageless, because the two of us together become whole, and we are actually competitive against athletes who are half our age. So
I love the word ageless, right? Because it tells you that you can follow your dreams at any age.
Absolutely. I totally believe that, Miss Liz. I live by that.
So, John, let's get into your Facebook page, because I have the Facebook page here. So I'm going to bring that up now. Tell us a little bit about the John Howard Performance Sports.
Mostly it's tech. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but I mostly technical. Bicycle fitting is one of the things that we do and do well. We like to, we're not as technically oriented as we used to be, but the process of tuning an athlete on that bike is a science that really looks to the biomechanics and the physiology of the rider to fine tune an athletic performance. And I've been doing this for, goodness, 40 years perhaps. So that tuning process is something that I've acquired through working with a number of specialists, listening to what they have to say. Dr. Ernie Farrell up in Santa Barbara, who is a medical director for Team USA beach volleyball. He has developed a system of soft tissue release. Well, one of the things we found about early on in bike setup is that if you can release a group of muscles that are directly applying power to the pedals, such as the quadriceps, the gluteals, and do it in such a way that you mimic the motor action of pedaling, you can really improve the performance of an athlete on their bike. So that's a tidbit of what we do. Dr. Farrell and I have developed a system called FIT, FITTE, fitness training technique, and it involves a process of just eliminating some of the idiosyncrasies that slow the athlete down and improve their overall output of power, which is what cycling is all about. I mean, certainly there are other things we do in the school. The John Howard Performance School of Champions is another one. We take athletes who are sometimes immensely talented and try to make them safe on their bikes. And bicycles, the Consumer Product Safety Commission will tell you that bicycles are about the most dangerous thing you can do on roadways. So what we try to do is make them safe by teaching them the technique of riding safely in traffic, and climbing, cornering, braking, shifting, pack riding, all part of the mix. So that's also another area that we focus on with our performance schools. Liz, I hope you're still there. I'm not hearing you currently.
And I'm back, John. Don't leave.
Oh, okay.
I told you, I will figure it out. With all the technology out there, Miss Liz will figure it out. So if you want to continue where you left off, John, before I popped out, to continue on.
I'm not sure when you popped out, Liz. Let's see. I was explaining to your listeners and viewers, unfortunately listeners in my case, the importance of bike setup for maximum performance. My friend and confidant, Dr. Ernie Farrell, who and I worked together on bike setup for purpose of making athletes more efficient. Dr. Farrell has developed a system called dynamic motion therapy. And we discovered very early on that if we can release muscle groups that are part of the motor action of pedaling a bike, we can vastly increase the performance level of the athlete. So once you break that soft tissue out and start looking at the precise motor action of pedaling, it's a complicated process, pedaling a bicycle. and it involves a number of different muscles, and you open them up simultaneously so that they can do a more efficient job of turning the pedals. And the end result is that you produce champions. And we have done just that. I've had over 100, let's see, at last count, over 160 national champions, 12 world champions, 3 Olympic gold medalists that we have worked with, and Paralympic athletes as well. We work with Paralympic athletes at the San Diego-based Challenged Athletes Foundation. I work with them, and they have put almost 40% of the Paralympic athletes in the Olympics. So my hat's off to the Challenged Athletes Foundation of San Diego. We're a huge supporter of them.
Well, and we just had a Paralympic on Tea Time last week. Kyle Kuhn, he just went to the Paris Olympics, and he was a cyclist as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. I don't
Yeah.
know Kyle, but I applaud his efforts and in cycling. Was he an individual cyclist, or he must have been a team cyclist if he
Yeah,
depending.
I think he did a triathlon. So he did like the 3 races: the swim,
Oh, okay.
and the run, and all that. They came in
Well,
8th place, I believe he said.
quite an accomplishment. My hat's off to Kyle, because anybody who can excel in triathlon, swim, bike, and run, that is one of the most difficult things to do on planet Earth. And I speak from experience. I won the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii in 1981, the first one on the Big Island. So, raced triathlon for about 9 years and then got back into cycling.
It's a small world, right? Because I just had Kyle on a week ago, and now I have you on, John. So it's a small world, right?
Indeed, it is a small world.
So, John, I have your website up here, and we have What is Fits. You want to talk about that?
Well, fitness, training, technique, and equipment. It's kind of our logo there. I don't know where I lost you, but essentially it's the process of fitting the bike. There are 2 areas primarily that I focus on: fitting the bike, working with Dr. Farrell on that aspect of it, where we adjust the saddle, we adjust the nose tilt, the fore aft, a lot of very subtle adjustments to the bike. And our goal is to make people faster, to make them more efficient, to make them safer on the bike. And biking, Consumer Product Safety Commission, if you follow any statistics, you will probably be frightened away from cycling. But it's far more than just riding on the street. There are so many wonderful platforms available. I'll mention one of them, Zwift, which allows a cyclist to train interactively with other cyclists. Arguably, cycling is the most technically advanced sport around, and you can train with someone, anywhere on the planet, in that format, and train as you can go as fast as you possibly want. So it's a great technique for using. It's not one that I particularly prescribe to, but many of my clients have gotten the Zwift ZWIFT platform and use it religiously. And
So, John, let's talk about you also have legal consulting. What's all that about?
well, I work with attorneys Liz, I work with attorneys. I help with bicycle cases involving plaintiff and also defense, uh, where people have had catastrophic accidents on their bikes. And I'm part of a group of forensic experts who look at every aspect of the accident and try to figure out how it happened. And that a forensic approach to the the bicycle accident allows us sometimes through scanning and sometimes just basic the experience of trying to figure things out what took place that caused it. And in many cases I think accidents are preventable, and it's our best example of what we need to do to explain this to, in some cases, a jury. My objective through the School of Champions is to educate cyclists so that they are comfortable on their bikes. That, of course, is part of the fitting process that we go through. But we want them to be safe in traffic. Because, again, if you follow the stats, they're not encouraging. But we try to armor cyclists with the knowledge base to go out there on the streets and be safe. So that's our primary objective, is to make athletes as safe as possible through the FIT system. And as I say, there are several aspects to it, but it's a highly evolved methodology of fitting people on their bikes and making them safe on their bikes. In a Reader's Digest version, that would be what I would call it.
So I do apologize for all the technical issues, guys. We have a storm that I am unaware of because I am in my tea room and my door is closed, and I've just been told that there's a big storm outside. So that's why we have a lot of technical issues. It's on my end, John, not your end.
Oh, sorry about that. I hope I'm not. Am I losing you completely here when I'm talking?
No. It's just me. I'm getting kicked out because of the storm that's going on outside of my house. But it's okay. We're all good. We're still spilling tea. We're still getting the message out there. We're getting the story out there. So all of my listeners are still intact. Are still listening and tuning in with all the glitches, because that's just how committed my listeners are. So John, let's talk a little bit about. I asked you one word to describe yourself, and you gave me the word dogged. Why that word?
The word is, again, I'm sorry.
Dogged.
Dog?
Yeah.
Well, I'm an old dog.
Dogged.
Yeah, I've been at this longer than almost any of my contemporaries, and I'm certainly dogmatic about my approach to it, but that also leaves the door wide open for adventure. And yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time pulling my dog, my puppy, around on a leash on the seat tube of my gravel bike.
Oh.
And yeah, that's a whole new perspective, because you start learning what the animal wants, and you have no clue. Sometimes the dog has well, it's a young dog to begin with, has no clue as to how traffic works. So you're teaching the dog, and the dog is teaching you. So I think
I would have never guessed that with that word. You see, you took me on another bicycle journey with the dog.
I highly recommend it. There's a leash that attaches to the seat post, and it's a bar, and it it keeps the dog out of the rear wheel, and it allows me to, as I say, to explore new territory. And my dog happens to be, any dog lovers out there will probably identify the dog Saluti, which is a very similar to a greyhound. That's probably what she looks like, and she is a born runner. So we're out there on that bike, and so it allows me to ride my bike. It allows her to run as fast as she chooses to go.
So, John, with all the cycling and the Olympics and all your journey in life, what is the biggest thing that has impacted your life besides the cycling?
Well, it's all encompassing. I just found a niche very early on. I think every parent should explore, any parent who is interested in having their child become athletic in any regard should explore the full gamut of adventure in sports, and anywhere from swimming to gymnastics to cycling to running, track and field, and everything in between should be explored. And only if you do that will you find the thing. And so I boxed, I played baseball, I played basketball, I did all the ball sports, but I really found my calling in cycling. And I was just kind of burned out on team sports. My dad was a very good football player, and he wanted me to follow in his footsteps. And when I refused that, I actually did play for a couple of years. And I realized, I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm a buck 30 in my best form. I'm way too light for the game. It's not working out. I want to ride my bike." And at which point he threatened to disown me. He
Oh,
said, "You're no son of mine." And as soon as he saw that I was successful at cycling, and early, it's hard to find races back in the 60s, but as soon as he saw that I could do this, he almost immediately became my biggest supporter. And we used to travel all over the Midwest in his Mustang convertible. And we would go to all the bike races throughout the Midwest, from Chicago to Indianapolis to St. Louis to Kansas City, Olathe, Kansas, and then points east. And we would drive all over to those races. And as I say, he became my biggest fan. So what he really wanted was a successful something. He wanted his son to be successful. And I guess I achieved that.
but sometimes as parents, we have to push our kids in different ways, right? And then we see that they have the potential in them, and then we're like, wow. And then we're like, oh, we got to really team up with them. We really got to show them that we support them. Uh, us parents, we don't have it all together, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and I think, as I say, it's important to explore that, to
Yeah.
look at all possibilities. Don't give up on one until you've tried something new. In my case, I was ill suited for football, but cycling, because there are a lot of lightweight cyclists who do road racing, it was perfect for me. So I found my niche, and that's what every kid should do, and with the encouragement of their parents, but not being pushed into anything, because the kids have got to do it on their own. They've got to enjoy the activity, because motivation ultimately comes from within.
Absolutely. So, John, for any of the little youngsters out there that are listening to Miss Liz's Tea Time today, what message would you have for them as a future cyclist?
Oh, read my book. Go to this fabulous biographical novel and read about one of the greatest athletes of all time, Major Taylor, who broke the color line in cycling 50 years before Jackie Robinson did it in baseball. His story that the racial animosity that got him there, I think is prime material for young readers. And I encourage that. There are portions of it that are going to be a bit heavy, but, I encourage kids to read. And so, get the Audible version, but you will enjoy this book, I promise. And, as far as advice, I think it's important to, again, explore the possibilities of doing more than one thing. But, I was encouraged in my career through a comic book, and the Red Devil lit the match, and probably became first a disciple of the Red Devil, and then later Major Taylor, who arguably was the greatest sprinter who ever lived.
So, John, now I'm going to take you on a different path. We're going to get on a different bike right now, and we're going to talk to you about your favorite color, because I asked you what your favorite color was, and you gave me yellow. So, did you ever have a yellow bike?
Very good question. Yes, I did. I had a yellow Schwinn Paramount. I was sponsored by Schwinn early on, and that canary yellow Schwinn Paramount I used to win the Pan American Games gold medal in 1971 in Cali, Colombia. And that is significant because it brought money, real hardcore cash into the sport of cycling, when otherwise you needed to have a rich uncle or wealthy parents to support you, because cycling is an expensive sport and you need to have that equipment. Even then it was expensive. So that's how I would answer that, Liz. I would tell you that Schwinn Paramount, that canary yellow Schwinn Paramount, was an important ingredient, and I chose the yellow for that reason. I don't know very much about the psychology of the choice, but I think in my case it just rang bells.
Well, it resonated with you, right? It brought good memories back.
It definitely did, and that's why I chose that color. It was one of the chosen colors in the rainbow that Schwinn offered, and it was an unusual color because most of them were reds and blues and whites, but I chose the yellow.
I like yellow, because yellow is not a color that I got given to me. Over 400 interviews, and I think you're the only fourth or fifth person that gave me the color yellow. So it was nice to get the yellow.
Oh, I'm laughing. Great to hear that.
So, John, I want to talk to you a little bit about your future plans. Do you have another book coming? Do you have any events or anything that you would like people to check out?
I had a bizarre number of events that occurred in my lifetime. I will not divulge any of those now, but yes, I want to write another book, and I want to include some of the unbelievable things that have happened to me in growing up, mostly in Springfield, Missouri, back in the Ozark Mountains. And I'll leave it at that. So yeah, I have another book in me. I want to tell this story. My sister Ann is my editor, and I need an editor because I tend to ramble, as you can tell from this interview.
No, that's a good thing. Like, especially on days like today where we have the technical issues, we need a rambler in the house.
Well, you got a little cameo of me down there in the corner of the screen, so you see what I look like.
Well, and my listeners always wonder how Miss Liz pulls it off, right? With technical issues, the show still goes on. I still find a way to get it going. And we're still having an enjoyable conversation with you, John. So thank you for that.
Well, it's been fun, Liz. I've enjoyed every aspect of it, and you took me down a few paths that I wasn't expecting, and I think we, you brought up you dredged up more material. So thank you for that. Certainly.
Well, I like to take my guests down the few rabbit holes, right? Because that's where we go to Mad Hatter Tea Party. Miss Liz takes everybody on a journey.
Oh yes, Lewis Carroll.
That's my superhero, guys. Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, I don't like Superman or Spider-Man. I'm an Alice girl.
Well, that's great. Yeah, he was. Yeah, I can appreciate the fact that Alice in Wonderland. I think looking back at it was probably, the way he changed the complexion of everything and made us small, made us large. I'd have to give him credit for being an early superhero author, because he had some. I don't know what he was on, but it was something powerful for
On a good cup of tea. That's what he was on.
There you go. There you go. Well, I see the analogy of tea because it certainly fits Alice in Wonderland perfectly.
Yeah. Well, that's just who I am, right? I just like to take my guest on a journey and take my listeners on a journey as well and make them look deeper within the cup, right? Because it's not about the beverage, it's about what we serve and how we bring it to the table.
Indeed. I second that.
So, John, what final message would you have for all the listeners out there today?
Be adventurous. Yeah, don't let yourself sit in a corner. Don't be couch potatoes. Explore, read. Please don't lose the capacity to read. Yeah.
Well,
I will say this. There is a passage. The book I've written is an American tragedy. The Black Cyclone is an American tragedy. And there is a passage that I will quote if I get a chance here. Thank you for indulging me, Liz. It goes like this, because I think Aeschylus, the Greek playwright, was considered the father of Greek tragedy. And there is a passage that I will share with you. Even in our sleep, pain that we cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. That is the story of Major Taylor, and it is gripping. And I challenge everyone to read this great book. And I have to call it great because that's what it is.
Well, thank you so much, John. It's a real pleasure to get to know you and get to sit. Even though I can't see you, I got to see you before we went live, and then we had some glitches come on. But, just getting and having a conversation with everyday people who are making a difference in the world. And John, you're one of those people. So thank you for joining me on Tea Time.
Thank you so much, Liz. Much appreciated.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining Miss Liz and all the glitches and pops in and out and all the different screenshots that you got to see and got to enjoy today. So thank you guys all for that. Thank you, Bruce, for tuning in and joining in the studio. One of my bigger supporters, my little big brother that watches over me all the time. So he's out there watching over me. So thank you for that, Bruce. Thank you for the listeners on Instagram. I want to thank you for joining in and staying with all the glitches and glamours and all that as well. And all of the viewers that have been tuning in from YouTube and Twitch and Instagram and Facebook, thank you all, and LinkedIn. Miss Liz goes down some rabbit holes sometimes, and we just have some fun and we spill tea in a different way with storytelling and words. I will be back tonight at 7 p.m. with the next guest. Let me just grab who I have next. We have Don Sawyer coming in, and he's replacing Cece Robinson as she lost her voice, so she was unable to do her tea time. So we have a replacement, and we have Don Sawyer coming in. He'll be talking about his book and that as well. His book is the hidden the burning gem. So we'll be talking about that tonight. So until then, I want to wish everybody a good afternoon. Stay safe. The weather is getting a little nasty out there, and we will be back, and we will spill another cup of tea in Miss Liz's way. So until then, thank you all for tuning in. I could not do this without all of you guys. So again, run over to the YouTube channel, give that a little quick subscribe, and you'll want to join us on December 19th for the reunion show, where there's over 50 plus guests that are coming back from all 5 seasons. So we have some surprises there as well. So stay tuned for that. Until then, I will see everybody at 7 p.m. with the second tea of today.